Well, we're not sailing because Endeavour is off to the Wooden Boat Festival. We've taken the opportunity to do some maintenance. So at the moment we are stripping back the capping rail on the poop deck to put some new paint on and do some repairs. Also, the capping rail is off on the main deck to fix some stanchions.
There was a storm a couple of weeks ago and the timber fairlead got cracked, so what are you doing?
Okay, so after that berthing line cracked the timber fairlead on the outside of the hull, we removed that, which exposed some further problems we found. On the frames themselves, they were pretty eroded away with rot, water getting in through the cracks. So we had to lift the capping off, found the rot in the frames, so we've got to glue onto that, extend the tenons back up again where the fairleads are. We had to remove some bulwark planking and some outside planking, which exposed more problems.
All furry, timber's furred up due to water ingress, moisture, condensation, which will lead to rot.
More problems with the capping, where the scarf is at the capping here. That's in the workshop at the moment, getting repaired. Some repairs to do on the top of it, so that we can stop that water getting down inside the hull. So that's the coach bolt that was holding the inner planking for the bulwark into the frames. So that's how much it's eroded away.
Wow.
From moisture getting in there. Here I've got some, these are called dumps, metal spikes. These were also used to hold the bulwark planking on, mainly at the end of the planking. You can see how eroded they are from water ingress. So we had to remove them. We had to use a little hydraulic ram to help remove some of them, because they really bite in as they swell up inside the frame. They really swell up and bite in harder than they would normally.
And you had to take the carvel cleat off?
We did. We removed the carvel cleat so that we could get access to the fasteners for the inside planking on the bulwark.
Using a very nifty hydraulic jack, a lot of unscrewing of the corroded coach bolts, careful placement of various timber wedges, and a lot of banging, the carvel cleat eventually came off.
About 25 years or so since this has been opened up. A lot of the inside too had no treatment on it, had no paintwork in there, so that it allowed moisture to get into that timber more than what it probably should have if it was painted when it was put together. We're going to get some Everdur in there and a coat of primer in there to help it keep the water out and preserve it.
So how do you attach the capping rail to the stanchions?
Okay, so the capping rail itself has mortises cut into it, which is like a socket, and then the tenons on the top of the frames here socket into that mortise, and then a hole is drilled through the capping into the top of the frame, and then a trunnel is put into that hole. That's half of the trunnel that's been cut off.
Yeah.
So it goes in, and then a wedge is driven in there to expand it, which then grips it very tight, so it can't fall out on its own.
You can see where they've been driving the tunnels, see that? See them, that's where they drive them from the outside.
So with some major structural work going on board on deck, there's even more happening below decks.
So what you're doing, Andrew, down here?
We're replacing some of the freshwater plumbing. Most of it's original, so over 25 years old. We've had a couple of failures in it already, mostly the plastic fittings.
So there's not much crawl room down there, is there?
Not a lot of space.
And you've got to pull the hose all the way along?
Yeah, we've got about a 22 metre run all up from the freshwater tanks to a pump, to an accumulator tank, to showers, to toilets, to the galley, to the freshwater maker, hot water system.
Wow.
What's to stop us cutting a scarf that goes across these two? I've made a bit of progress in the last week. We've glued some gravos in the tops of our tenons. We've cut the bad bit of timber out between and glued a new bit in there. That's called a gravo, to make the deteriorated timber good again. There's our gravo there. We cut the bad bit of timber out from inside the tenon and we glue a new piece of oak in there. We've put some sister frames in beside our existing frames, especially the forward 3 frames up here. Sisters are a new bit of frame beside it, bolted to the side, glued and screwed here, and then we're going to put blocking in between these as well to really strengthen up this area. With two fairleads going through here, wasn't much strength left there, so these and the blocking really strengthen it up for the mooring lines. We're going to use this hole saw to cut through where our fairleads go and then we put the insert back in there through the frame, through the planking. We're just drilling through the fair lead now. Our hole saw's bottomed out. You can see the mark here. We're just going to change to a different hole saw. Just got to find an arbor to fit the deeper hole saw, and we'll carry on. We're making a template for the new piece of capping that's going to fit in between these two bits. By using a template, we get the exact angle of our nibbed scarves here, so that hopefully we take the template up, lay it on the new bit of timber, trace around it, cut it out, with a bit of shaping and fitment, it should just drop straight in.
Taken the oil off the other existing bit of the capping rail?
Yes, we have. We gave it a good sand back. I think we used some 120 grit there. Brought the oak colour, the nice golden colour back into it. It's not perfect, and we'll blend it in with the existing stuff and get some oil on it. Should look pretty good.
So the repairs continue as they would have done back in time. Shipwrights skillfully fixing the never-ending damage caused by weather on timber. As the carvel cleats are off, it's the perfect time to clean up the sides that face the bulwarks, because normally they're inaccessible. Pete's sanding them back before he treats them. With the inner top plank now in position, holes can be carefully drilled before the final fitting.
We're just putting on some Everjoy here, Paul. It soaks into the timber and it just helps protect it.
Using a paint scraper and a heat gun on a 30-degree day is not much fun. But getting the capping rails back to bare timber will ensure a good finish when they're repainted.
We've fitted our planking on the outside of the hull. It's just a temporary fitting because we're going sailing tomorrow, so they're going to all come off again next week for painting the inside, painting the rest of the frames. Everything's getting coach screwed back on this time so that it is removable for repairs further into the future. Also the capping, we've fitted the capping back on. It will be coming off again next week. A little bit more work to do. We're putting some dowels in the old capping where the trunnels once were, and we're going to use coach screws to fasten that on instead of trunnels so that it is removable for repairs into the future.
Oak thick enough for the capping rail insert was hard to find, so it's actually two pieces laminated together.
We're putting some Everjoy on the end grain of the timber there for our capping. It waterproofs the end grain, seals it up, keeps the water out. So I'm hitting a new piece of dowel into the old trunnel hole so that when we put the coach bolt through, it's got something to hang on to. And then, once the coach bolt's in, we'll cover the outside with a plug. Right, this in here first, will it? Or?
Doesn't matter.
Right.
You in?
Yep.
Oh yes.
Just get these.
As it's all coming off again next week, bugle screws are being used as a temporary measure. Next, the carvel cleats had to be reattached. They're used for securing sheets, tacks and mooring lines, so they had to be ready for sailing the next day. But as Matt and Steve were putting in new coach bolts, they found some of them weren't biting.
Another spinner.
Which means they've discovered more rot, which will also have to be fixed next week.
Well, we've just filed in a new plank here, as you can see, this plank above us, and what we're doing is caulking this bottom seam, which will seal up the seam up And after we've done that, we're going to then pay the seam with Sikaflex, and that'll give us a nice seal on the on this plank we've just put in. Just stitching some oakum in, and you sort of overlap it and fold it into itself, so it sort of helps lock the oakum in to the seam. And then we'll harden that up. I'm using a bent iron so I can get the angle. Pushing the oakum in behind the seam, so then we can pay it. Paying it is when we're going to put, in this case we're going to use Sikaflex to seal that seam to make it watertight. We fasten this plank with trunnels, which is what we call it, which is a tree nail, which is basically a timber dowel that goes into there, picks up the timber frame behind it, and a wedge to open it up, and that locks the plank in.
At last, after 5 weeks, we're getting some top coat paint on the capping rail on the poop deck. This will be the first of 4 coats, on top of primer and base coat. And with luck, it should last about 5 years. If you'd like to help out maintaining a tall ship, please contact the volunteers department at the museum. We can always do with more help.